So, this whole thing started because I was watching all these YouTube videos about Victorian medicine. There's this like British place where I don't actually really know, but they like made a town where it's like all these British people pretending to be Victorian, but like authentically, like there's a blacksmith and stuff. But they opened up a pharmacy, and so they were talking about like British pharmacy stuff and how in Victorian times they didn't know what germs were. Like nobody knew what germs were because they didn't have microscopes to see the germs yet, which is really crazy to think about. So all Victorian medicines were just like cough syrups and laxatives and like basically just like vapor rub, because everyone was like medicine like only works if you can feel it. So, which like makes sense, but that made me think about how everyone's always calling Victorian people dumb, but I kind of feel like it's not that stupid, kind of just like makes sense why you'd like, if you didn't know what germs were, why you'd want to take a laxative if you didn't know how medicine worked. But anyway, so then I started to think about like what being smart is in general, because I feel like I'm always calling things smart and dumb, but I don't like actually have like a full list of what like I consider what being smart is. So my list of just like that I made off the top of my head, just a few things, is like common sense is the number one. And then just personally, like to my taste, I feel like someone has to have knowledge of at least one cool subject, which can be really niche or specific or small, but that's just important to me in finding someone smart. And then emotional intelligence and charm. The thing is though, is that I was starting to think about what like I consider to be intelligence, and how I kind of just think it's probably the same thing as sincerity, or just like what I consider to be like I consider like if you're the highest functioning, like most intelligent being, then you're like, that has to coincide with like emotional openness and like vulnerability, according to my definitions. Because in my world, like in order to be good, you have to like be chaotic, because in practical application, like goodness can't have like rigid morality, because everything's like nuanced. Like if you believe in restorative justice and like viewing things nuanced, then you can't like have a rigid morality. So goodness like has to be chaos. And then also I was starting to think about how like I think savants are the smartest people. So then like how do you like accomplish something like that? So then I created this chart, or I guess this like mind map or whatever. That's like the two ways I think you can like accomplish like nirvana or whatever, which is either through like hyper-presence or hyper-cynicism, and both of them can only happen through ego death. That's like the thing that has to happen, but these are like the two pillars of places in which you can like be truly sincere and like the smartest you can be and the most open and intelligent. And then you can like achieve those things either by just being like so charitable that you have no ego, or just like so cynical and jaded that you have no ego. And then everything else is like in here. So like everybody else is in here, and then as like you move towards hyper-presence, like your perceived normalness goes up, and as you move towards cynicism, the perceived intellectual depth goes up. But the side of hyper-presence is more like socially acceptable notions of charity and goodness. But then all the people who sort of like live in here can be sort of like, the cons of that can go with like passive aggressiveness and the way that neoliberalism is like sort of like fascist or whatever. And then also like repression for the sake of like being proper. So that's sort of like this section until you reach this threshold. And the cynicism is sort of like, I think the real thing that marks these two groups maybe separately is like breaking laws and doing drugs. Just because like like the neutral would be like you just do nothing, and this side would be like maybe you're like actively counteracting that, and this side is like you're like fuck it. But then obviously there's like complete issues with like cynicism or whatever also, because it can just be a bunch of people like hating on shit because they think they're like smarter or whatever. But then so these peaks of like true sincerity are like where like someone being like a pure open like being that has no ego and doesn't judge anybody, which hyperpresence is like you're so alive, you like so embody the notions of charity, like are so giving, you know, someone like Mother Teresa. And then like hypercynicism is like it has to be ego death, it has to be judgment, but it's more through hyper dissociation, like being so dead inside that you don't, or just having gone through so many things that you just don't feel judgment. So this side is chaos, disorder, and then you both sort of like the concept of being a saint to some degree, because they're, you know, that's where those things fit in. But then I was like, I don't really think it's actually like this, because I think these things can have some type of connection, because there's no way that this wouldn't like loop back around. So then I figured it's kind of like probably more like this. And then there's hypercynicism and hyperpresence, and it's more like a curve. And then hypercynicism and presence have like a line between them, and that's like where the craziest and best things in the world exist. Yeah. Because the thing about sincerity that's complicated is that being sincere is associated with being stupid, and being cynical is associated with being smart. So then this creates this dichotomy of normalness and otherness. And in reality, there are those who are sincere and not, like, and it doesn't matter sort of what you look like or anything about your attitude. So people who are sort of like in these sections are people who believe they are sincere and well-meaning but aren't in action because they just are too selfish, or people who purposely enjoy being closed off and hateful because it's just like fun, and the things that push you towards like being judgment-free are ego death and having no ego. Yeah. I also just like didn't make any, I mean, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to like psychoanalyze this stuff, but I don't actually, I've never even read the Wikipedia page for psychoanalysis. But, let me see. It also gets kind of hard because intelligence, like in this definition, I'm equating sincerity with intelligence, because that's like my definition of intelligence. But the thing that makes this interesting is intelligence in our culture functions in conjunction with normalcy and also like as a counterculture, because intelligence, like even though can be freedom for a lot of people, it also is like gatekeeping in academia and like the Western canon. So if you think as intelligence as being the closest and farthest thing from normalcy, depending on your values, it creates this sort of paradox. But then if you think about this sort of thing connecting, it makes more sense, because this is like where evil geniuses would be and things like that. And this chart doesn't really account for that, because I would almost, because an evil genius wouldn't be somewhere in here, it would be like, you know, in this, so that accounts for that. And also just like, is intelligence to be good at the world, or is it to be good at the world you constructed for yourself? Yeah. I think aversions to sincerity come from exposure to false sincerity, but that's not like what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about sincerity as like a socially coded like greeting card thing. I'm talking about it more as like a state of being in which you're like open and honest with people and vulnerable, and you have no ego, and you try to help everybody when you can in your own ways, but prompted, and you're just like trying to be a good person. Yeah.